Got Your Eers On is brought to you by Tactical Legion Knives. Live from the campus of Tom Radio, under the direction of Guido, Scoot, and Johnson, it's the pride of podcasting. It's Got Your Eers On.
Hi everybody, Guido here, just dropping in real quick to let you know we're taking a week off this week, but we will be back next week with another show breaking down the gold-blue game and talking about whatever is going on with WVU basketball and the transfer portal. But for this week, we're going to drop a little bit of classic fall football talk on you. Here's two segments, best of segments from last fall, talking about WVU football. So hope you enjoy. We'll be back next week, guys. Thanks for listening. All right, everybody. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Got Your Eers On. I'm Guido along with Scoot.
Let's go!
And Johnson.
1-0, Guido.
1-0, baby. 1-0. West Virginia takes the win. First game of the season opener.
Take that, Colonels.
Take that, Colonels. 56-10. And I want to tell you the most upsetting thing about this game to me.
What?
The Marshall fans won't shut up. Just shut up, Marshall fans. Nobody wants to hear you.
It's transitive property.
Oh, my God.
Marshall fans. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Come on. Seriously?
I don't
Marshall
really I know what you're talking about, but considering that late third quarter we were playing third stringers, like beer vendors, like anyone
Right.
that happened to walk by got to go
Parents
in.
that were in the stands came down and played. Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Come on. Really? Like we had a true freshman in at quarterback at one point, Marshall.
I don't really understand this Eastern Kentucky logo with the two lines, with these lines. What are these things?
The two horizontal lines. You know what it reminded me of? And this is just going to sound mean, but I'm being honest. Remember back in the day when you'd play like an old Nintendo football game and they didn't have the licensing, so they made up like logos? That's what that reminded me of. Just put two lines up there to give it some flair. Like it didn't make any
like,
sense.
what is that? I don't even, yeah.
So West Virginia pulls off the win, not surprisingly, against Eastern Kentucky University, 56-10. They covered the spread. The spread was 40.
Which I did not expect them to do, I'll be honest.
Yeah, I thought that was going to be a tough spread to cover. They covered it late. That was very late that they covered it. But,
right.
And I have to tell you, the most exciting really thing for me for the whole game, Fairmont boy, Zach Frazier, gets in starting center for pretty much the whole game. Pretty amazing to see him out there. True freshman. First true freshman to start at center in over 40 years.
Yeah,
WVU.
that's amazing just in itself. Talk about a stat. I mean, that's crazy.
And you know what's interesting is in the post-game press conference, Coach Brown was talking about, a lot of questions came up about him playing and the decision to have him play. And that's an important role, an important position, to have a true freshman start.
Yeah,
and
sure.
he actually mentioned that during camp, whatever it was, the gold or the blue team, when they were in camp, that Zach Frazier was lining up every day nose to nose with Darius Stills. So I think that
about
probably,
that. Yeah,
that probably
think about
helped
that.
him. Yeah, I mean, I don't think Scoot would want to line up every day against Darius Stills.
I don't know that Darius Stills wants to line up every day against me.
Because he wouldn't get any better. He'd be knocking you down every single time.
Late 90s, I played a very vicious offensive line in intramural flag football.
Yeah.
Just knocking people right off the line.
I mean,
Is that what you're saying?
Pancake City.
Knocking flags out of hip pockets.
It was Pancake City. I was blowing holes up.
Well, and Guido, how about, just to pump up your polar bear pride here a little bit, how about 5 polar bears
I love it.
suiting up Saturday? Yeah. That's pretty cool.
It's awesome.
So that makes one say, what happened to you?
I did not play football.
They churn out these football players. What's going on?
Yeah, like there's something in the water up there.
I was not a good football player. So, but in actuality, Zach Frazier got the start because there were 11 suspended players. None were COVID related.
Right.
But 11 suspended players.
And we heard about this, Guido, approximately 14 minutes before kickoff.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. I think
Or at least I did.
We were talking about it. TJ Simmons was one of the suspended players. And we were texting, the three of us were texting before the game, and TJ Simmons was on the Instagram or the Twitters or something, and he was like getting dressed, and I was like, oh, does he not? He must have not known he was suspended until a half hour before the game. So,
well, and my understanding too, Scoot, was that apparently this was like, something that happened some time ago, and they already had, this was like planned. It's not like anyone was shocked. Maybe we were surprised, but as far as the team was concerned,
I'm going to guess maybe it could have been something in the spring for all we know, really.
Right.
That was my impression.
And I would imagine
I was going to say also
all the same. These weren't all the same violation. I have a feeling these were 11 separate violations that probably caused them to miss this.
Well, and also interesting is that they were suspended, yet they were in street clothes with their jerseys on the sideline. So it was like TJ Simmons was on the sideline, just not in pads. He was wearing his jersey, but just hanging out in shorts and his jersey.
Yeah, I'm sure it was for something along the lines of missing a practice, showing
study hall or something,
study hall, something.
Well, they were quick to say it's non-COVID related, but
they were very quick to say.
I was suspicious of that, but I don't know.
But so let's just jump off and talk about the game right away, guys, and probably the standout, a little bit of the shocker, especially in the first quarter. Letty Brown looked good.
Yeah, he came out sizzling early. I mean, he had a rushing touchdown and a receiving touchdown, I think, by the second quarter. So he was really playing well, and I thought, he was actually getting some room to run. I mean, I know it was Eastern Kentucky, but he actually had, lanes to hit and holes to run through, which was nice to see for a change.
He finishes with 123 yards on 10 attempts, 2 touchdowns rushing, 1 touchdown for 15 yards receiving. So 3 touchdowns in total for him. A great sort of beginning way to start off the season. Definitely looks like the number 1 back, at least to start with.
Yeah, and I think to his credit, Alex Sinkfield was also running the ball really well. So I like the notion that I think I agree with you. Letty's the number 1, but Sinkfield played really well too.
Well, and I think that's the crazy thing is Sinkfield and Letty Brown had identical stats. They both ran for 123 yards and 2 touchdowns. So.
Crazy.
So here's a question, and I'm coming in. This is like complete. It's like opposite year. Okay?
All right.
It's clearly 2020.
I'm being optimistic. You're saying
I'm going to come in and say, okay. So Letty Brown ran really well. Alex Sinkfield ran really well. We know what our offensive line and what our running game was like last year. Is it that we are that much improved, or is this just more of a testament as to how bad Eastern Kentucky's defensive line, linebacking core, like, is it more so that they're really, really bad against the run because you've got 2 guys running for over 100?
I'm going to give you a very unsatisfactory answer and say it's a little bit of both, I think. I mean, look, Eastern Kentucky was probably one of the worst teams we've faced in a long, long time. I mean, right. Honestly.
Yep.
They're not the normal FCS team. If you think about, Georgia Southern, JMU, these teams that come in, I'm usually kind of like, yeah, these teams make noise in FCS. EKU's not a team like that. But at the same time, I think we know they've been happy with the offensive line play. Those guys are probably a little bit more on the same page. And Letty Brown and Alex Sinkfield have a year under their belt too to mature on. So I'd say it's a little bit of both. I'm hoping though that it parlays into better play against better competition, Scoot.
I think I'm with you, Johnson. Like, I think it's definitely a little bit of both. I mean, EKU is nobody to, write home or be worried about. But I think that this is also, in a lot of ways, the start that I think we needed to help this team really get their feet under themselves.
It's certainly a confidence builder, yeah.
Yeah, Oklahoma State in 2 weeks is going to be a much more difficult game. You're going to be playing a much higher level of recruits, and from defensive line all the way to the secondary. We'll see a little bit. We'll get a little bit better of the story during that game, but I think it was good to have this start where we looked good. I think they felt good. I think it was, we talked about, before we got on, we talked about Letty Brown's comments and the post-game press conference.
He said he was happy with the fat boys.
Yeah, he was happy with the fat boys, talking about the O-line. I think it builds that, getting that built into this team and trying to do a lot of the things that Neil Brown's been trying to do. And let's be honest, Neil Brown has been, for WVU fans, Neil Brown has been given a gift. Like this season, albeit crazy and no fans and nobody's going to be able to probably go to a game and it's going to feel weird. It's a gift because you have all of these guys that are going to be able to play and not lose eligibility, it's basically year 1.2 for Neil Brown.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's unique.
I don't think I'm that worried about it at this point. I will tell you that in a lot of ways, I think Letty Brown looked better than Alex Sinkfield. There was the little bit of issue for the punt return for Alex Sinkfield. When you think about this. Last year, West Virginia averaged 2.3 yards a carry, right? That was their average last year. This weekend's total was 6.5 yards a carry. Letty Brown was 12.3 and Alex Sinkfield was 8.2.
Well, and wasn't there some kind of crazy stat I read that so Saturday's game was essentially 35% of the total rushing yards that we had all of last year?
It was. We had last year just barely over 1,000 rushing yards. We had 329 this weekend.
But so, Scoot, the one thing
there's nowhere to go but up, Scoot. That's what all I'm saying.
Well, and the one thing I would add, Scoot, to that kind of fence, straddling the fence answer I gave you, I think anything that went out wide Saturday with running plays didn't look so hot. Anything kind of between this is me talking like I know what I'm talking about, but anything between the tackles to me looked a lot better. And so that was just simply because physics, right? We're just able to push Eastern Kentucky off the line of scrimmage. So my fear then is when you get against better Big 12 competition, guys that you can't just push off the line. Yeah, we're probably going to see a lot different story. But I'm hoping though it's a better than last season.
I think I'm going to reserve my judgment on whether or not the running game looks better because I really don't know that it does. I just think, for us to see what we saw last year, and then obviously this is complete opposite. We got a third of the rushing yards that we had in one game all of last season, and two guys ran for over 100 yards, not just one. It wasn't like to me that's like video game type stuff.
So your takeaway is more, wow, EKU sucks.
Yeah, I don't know that I was. And I watched the game, and I don't know that I was like, wow, man, our running backs are phenomenal. It was more like, holy crap, that's a wide hole. I think I could run through that. And
yeah, well, so we'll see. But I'm trying to be optimistic. I think it has to be better. And I think the fact that Coach Brown coming in was so what am I trying to say, Guido? So high on the, so congratulatory of the strides the offensive line has made. I'm trying to be optimistic on it. But you're right, Scoot. I think we'll see against better competition.
Well, and Eastern Kentucky kind of also had that feel of, and we've all seen teams, whether it be football, basketball, any sport really, that is not a great team. Once that first series happened for WVU, it's for the Eastern Kentucky guys, it's like, all right, hang on, let's see how bad this one's going to be.
Right.
So all of a sudden the play is not near as inspired.
Right. And the stats show that. I mean, if you look down the team comparison stat lines, it's kind of like, who did we play? I honestly think Martinsburg might have been a better matchup for us than Eastern Kentucky. I mean, we had 31 first downs. They had 9. We had 329 rushing yards. They had 75. We had 295 passing yards. They had 131. So, total offensive yards, we had 624. They had 206. So, yeah, it wasn't much of a match, I guess. It wasn't much of a test. But sticking with the offensive line, Scooty, you prior to this past weekend, you were very hot on this whole quarterback situation. Jarrett Dagey got announced as starter.
Yes, I'm still there.
And so Dagey this weekend, not bad, 19 for 25 for 228 yards and 3 touchdowns. 32-yard long pass with Reese Smith there, with Sam James for that touchdown pass. Where do you stand after? Then you saw Austin Kendall come in the second half, and we saw Garrett Green a little bit in the third quarter.
All right,
or fourth quarter. Where were you? Where are you on this?
All right, here's where I stand, and you guys can do what you want with this hot take. All right, so I thought Dagey looked okay. I mean, he wasn't setting the world on fire. He didn't seem to. I thought he and Bryce Ford Wheaton really connected better than he and Sam James. I felt like Sam James was kind of not an afterthought, but kind of a ghost at times, whereas Ford Wheaton looked big, looked strong, caught in traffic, had some speed upfield. I was really impressed with him.
I would agree with that, yeah.
Austin Kendall, the floats my goats, was a little bit back. He looks, and I think Johnson put this in our show note, he looked kind of like a guy that was thinking about what he was going to eat for the post-game meal, more so than like, hey, this is my chance to maybe take the job back.
Can I just interject, Scoot? My thought, for as little as Austin Kendall appeared to have wanted to be there Saturday, Garrett Green appeared to have really wanted to. Like, talk about two ends of the energy spectrum.
Right. And okay, so going into that fourth quarter then, and this is a hot take that you may not like.
Hot take alert.
I like Garrett Green. I like Garrett Green
too.
I like the energy. I like the smack talk. I like all of it.
I knew Scoot was going to say that.
Like, I honestly think Garrett Green's the number 2 right now. After watching this weekend, I want Garrett Green.
Well, that's the intriguing thing, right? So does that make you think that Garrett Green gets in there late? Like, hey, let's feel this out a little bit.
And here's the great thing about it, Garrett Green. Like, let's take everything else aside. In 2 years, Garrett Green is going to be our starting star quarterback. I just see it. It's coming. But here's the thing. No matter what happens, he could take us to the national championship in 2 or 3 years. Every clip they're going to show is that first play he gets in and gets slammed onto the ground.
Like, welcome
to D1 football, boy.
So I think he's got a strong connection with Reese Smith. I imagine, I'm just speculating, but they're probably roommates. A lot of times you see those two guys, they kind of got recruited similar time frame, probably had campus visits similar time frame. So a lot of times you end up being roommates with those guys. So I've got a feeling like they probably are roommates, or they have a friendship off the field, because they seem to connect really well on a couple of those pass plays.
Well, I was surprised at how low energy Austin Kendall looked. I mean, I know he has to be disappointed, but honestly, he just looked like he'd rather be at his dentist appointment than be in the game. And then, so I'll give Scoot this, okay, because Scoot does these kind of comments just to try to get under my skin. So I'll give Scoot, like, I'd rather with Garrett Green have to talk him down a little bit. Like, at one point, Coach Brown pulled him over and was like, "Hey, shut up." You know, like, because he looked like a jackwagon talking smack to like these guys that just happened to find jerseys with EKU on him and played some football, right? He's like flexing and stepping over a guy when he's down and stuff.
Listen, that guy hit him dirty.
But I'd rather have that guy that I have to be like, hey, just, cool that down a little bit. Let's concentrate and focus, rather than go out to Austin Kendall and be like, hey buddy, what's bothering you today? So I can easily see Garrett Green working into the number 2 if that's the energy level comparison.
My only concern with Garrett Green, I have one concern. None of it is his mouth. None of it. I thought he ran really well for a quarterback. I think he's.
Well, you can tell he's an athlete. I mean, he's got skills.
What do you think my one concern is with him?
His hair.
No, his hair is pretty good, I think. I think he's got good hair.
Oh, I thought you were going to go the hair route. Actually, I don't know, Scoot. I don't know what to pick at.
His height. He's not exceptionally tall. From list him at 5'11".
Yeah, he's not. That's true.
Listen, so where's he from? Anybody know where he's from?
He's from the South.
He's from Tuscaloosa. I mean, I think he would be playing in Bryant-Denny Stadium if
he was like 6'2", 6'3". Yeah.
If he was probably 3 inches taller. Yeah.
No, I agree with that, Scoot. I mean, but I don't think that holds him back, though. I mean, I think he can still do it.
No, I do. It gives me, like, I don't want to say anxiety, but it gives me like a bit of a Skylar Howard, like,
that's who you think of. Yeah, that's who you think of.
And he's taller than Skylar Howard, but you can tell.
I mean, Skylar Howard was like 5'6". I mean,
like, I get worried because I do think that Neil Brown's done a pretty good job of bringing in new offensive line recruits, and I think that the offensive line does look better. And when you bring in bigger guys, which I think is what you're starting to see some of these bigger guys get recruited, like, that makes it that much tougher for him to see.
Right.
So I do hope, like, I mean, if if they run him like they kind of ran him, and I think some of that is because he's a freshman quarterback in there and they're trying not to let him get killed as far as sitting back there and trying to pass, and they were up big.
Yeah, right. You're not really throwing.
Right.
At that
But
point.
if they let him and they throw some run schemes in there with him, I think they can offset some of the height issue that I have with him. Like they care what I think. But that is my only concern. I would make him number 2 right now. I would tell Austin Kendall, you can hold the clipboard or you can go eat sandwiches. I don't really care if you're going to come in if you're going to come in kind of with like a flat attitude, like this is your chance, man.
Right.
You got an opportunity to play in the second half in a game that you might not have gotten an opportunity to play at all in. Do something with it instead of...
my thought was, I know it's Eastern Kentucky. I know you're up by a couple touchdowns at that point, but go out and be solid and remind people you're solid. You know what I mean? Like go out and have energy and just be solid, and then keep everyone, you in the back of everyone's mind. To me, he would have been better off just not going in there Saturday for as flat as he looked.
Yeah, I agree. He still was playing with some of the ones too. I mean, it wasn't like he was getting the bottom of the barrel. I mean,
he just doesn't look like a guy that commanded the number 1 spot last year, right? So you would think that, okay, he's got maybe a chip on his shoulder now, even more so than he had. Like, I feel like should have a permanent chip on his shoulder the way he's probably feels he's been handled his entire college career, right? Almost constantly the backup.
Well, I mean, that would do it to you. Yeah,
right.
Sure.
I
mean, I'm not saying I don't get it, but
I mean, and he's there now, and he's not going anywhere. I mean, he's not there. Here's the thing: he's going to be the backup. He's the backup. It's unfortunate for him, but I honestly think that at this point in the season, unless something tragic happens to Jarrett Dagey, I don't see him playing much after this past weekend.
Right.
So I agree with you. I mean, I'm happy with Dagey. I think that I think Dagey looked good. I think he looked energetic. I think the team looked energetic around him. We had 10 people caught passes, and half of which caught multiple, had multiple receptions. So, I mean, I think the wide receiver core looks strong this year. I think quarterback looks strong. I think O-line looked better. It's hard to tell against a team like EKU, but I think O-line looked better.
Yeah.
Let's switch over to the other side of the ball and talk a little bit about defense, guys. There were parts of this game that I was like, man, the defense looks like they're playing really well. And then there were parts of this game where I was like, man, they should really be playing better. Like, I'm more worried right now as we stand about the defensive side of the ball than the offensive side of the ball.
Well, I think it's a generic comment, Guido. I don't really have more detail to add, but my general feeling was just about the defensive secondary. I just felt if you think about, so before halftime, maybe midway to late second quarter, EKU got a little bit of energy on some quarterback runs, and then they burned us with a really long touchdown pass where we just kind of looked lost. And then there were other times where I felt like receivers were catching the ball and it took a Mississippi or 2 count for a WVU defender to get into the picture. So again, I don't know how much you learn from games like this. Maybe he was still moving people around, and I know, they've got some younger guys on defense, but still, I guess my cynical side kicked in, and I was like, whoa, is there some soft spots in this secondary? And I think what makes me worry is just because we know how teams in the conference wing the ball around. So,
and I'm with you on that. Here's a couple things to think about. Like, so. And then we'll talk about the good things. Let's start with the bad, and then we'll talk about the good things. So I was a little upset. We got burnt a couple of times downfield. And granted, it was probably only 2 or 3 times, but against a team like EKU, it should have been 0. And
I think that's what I was thinking too. It was more like, I feel like that shouldn't be happening against this team.
And then looking at the defensive interior, and I guess I'm going to tell you a stat, and if we were playing Oklahoma or we were playing Baylor or any of the other teams in our conference, with the exception of maybe, Kansas, I would be happy with this stat. I think for this game, I'm not. 4 sacks for 21-yard losses. So Vandarius Cowan's sack looked great.
Yeah.
It was a 3-yard loss, but the way he broke through looked great.
I agree.
There were a couple other sacks in there. One person who didn't make the, Mesidor had a great sack. One person who didn't make the stat line at all, guys. I'm not saying this is a thing, but again, it's EKU. Darius Stills, nothing on the stat line.
Yeah, and I thought about that too, but probably I didn't pay attention to it enough, but I'm sure they had people, trying to focus on both of the Stills brothers not beating them up, and that's why other people probably had some opportunities. But I tend to agree with you on that, Guido.
Dante had 1 tackle for a loss, 1.5 tackle for a loss for 3 yards.
Well, and that it bothered Darius because he tweeted about it.
I saw that too. Yeah,
he said
I saw that.
I will be better. So it's probably frustrating, but like you said, all of the attention is on him.
Yeah, that's my
It's
feeling.
going to allow, which is, you're going to see Akeem Mesidor and you're going to see his brother Dante probably excel, and then Pooler also did well. So you're going to see some of those guys.
And Guido, the other thing too, here I am trying to pick a negative on the secondary, and then you have Adai making a top 10, ESPN top 10 play interception that was magnificent. So
Great interception.
That's probably more me picking at them than anything else. I think I just worry about the way we know offenses are going to wing the ball around. I'd like to just make sure we have confidence in those guys.
Can I ask you a question that's somewhat related to the football game and the COVID?
Okay.
Let's talk about the man trip.
Okay.
Did you see any photos? I saw a photo, I think, or tweet or something with Coach Brown rubbing the coal.
The coal.
Like,
flip a coal.
Is that advisable during this kind
I
of time?
see
Like,
where
do
you're
they
going.
do they
Are they wearing
sanitize the coal
gloves?
block?
Are they wearing gloves?
No, I don't know. Is that something we still do?
Does someone run up and wipe the coal off before the next touch, maybe?
That's what I'm saying. Like, what happens when you put Lysol on coal? I don't even know.
Well, think of it this way. Think about the procedures of it, guys. So how this is going to work all season long. This is every game is Friday morning. Every player, every staff member is getting tested, is getting COVID tested Friday morning. They get those results by Friday evening for the Saturday game. So obviously, if they have a positive, if somebody is they're either kicked, they either kicked out, or if they have more than a certain number of positives, they're not going to play a game. So I would say, Scoot, as much as you're worried about it, I think it was probably fairly safe for them to all rub the lump of coal, if you will.
Safe man trip, Scoot.
Safe man trip. The other thing I wanted, speaking about things that the players and the teams doing, what was with the Juice Squad signs? Did you guys see those? The Juice Squad and Get Juiced Up. They were all holding these signs.
Now, I didn't pick up on this, so I don't know.
They're holding and I don't know if it's how they're calling plays in or what it's about, but there's signs on the sidelines that I saw a couple of times. They're like, "Get Juiced Up" or "Juice Squad" and all this stuff.
But is that kind of like designated hype guys? Like, there's no crowd to hype you up.
It wasn't players. It definitely looked like the either coaches or some assistants, grad assistants,
like Tau Cobras, but they were the Juice Squad.
They were the Juice Squad. We got Tau Cobras. We got Juice Squad.
Like, they weren't with blenders on the sideline, were they?
I don't know. Maybe they were making
Jack LaLanne energy drinks with fruit.
Maybe
he's like, here, this is gonna help.
How did you guys feel about watching the game with no fans in the stands?
It was definitely odd.
I'll be honest with you. I would almost rather no fake crowd noise.
Okay.
I would almost rather be able to hear what the players are saying. I know that might not be great for the 17 and under crowd, because you never know what you're going to hear. I'd almost rather hear players mic'd up and hear more game sound than hear fan sound, because the fan sound is like goofy.
Well, we definitely heard some hot mic action.
We heard some hot mic action. We definitely heard some hot mic action from the EKU coach.
And Scoot, the EKU head coach, he had a bit of Jim Levitt to him. Do you agree?
He did a little bit, yes. He also, I felt like, was barking up the wrong tree most of the time. Like, here's the deal, buddy. A lot of it's not the officiating. It's your team is not good. So why don't we spend some of that energy and recruit better, teach better. I don't know,
right.
But some of your issue is not the officials.
Well, maybe that's what he was saying. We just couldn't hear that part. Like, look, dude, my team already sucks. Can you not call these penalties?
And like, that's what I don't get. Those guys, they want to like bark at the officials. You've been beaten like a drum 2 straight weeks by 2 teams from West Virginia. Like, and one of them, not a Power 5. Like, it's not us, it's you. That's the problem.
Well, I thought that it was interesting to see, especially when they did the wide angle shots with nobody in the stands, the official attendance. In case you were wondering, there was an official attendance number. They let they let players' family in there.
Well, Guido, at first, I was actually surprised when the game came on. You could see quite a bit of people. Well, I'm saying quite a bit, but I was expecting 0, and you had group of people around the midfield area. I guess they said that was staff members, family, folks like that.
Yeah, staff members, family. Official attendance was 976 attendance.
That's actually way more than I would think.
Yeah, that's actually a bigger number than I would think.
I thought you were going to say like 200.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. So I'm friends with the Frazier family, and so they posted some pictures of them watching the game. And it was super interesting to just see, like when we've done it before. We take cell phone pictures of the stadium.
Sure,
and you see
yeah.
The stadium. It was like them taking a cell phone picture of the stadium, and it was like 4 people over here in front of them, and like 2 people down here, and then like empty on the student section side. So it was very strange.
Well, I loved people on Twitter running with the student sections empty comments. Like they should give those tickets to paying. Like that whole running thing that did make me laugh, I have to admit.
But yeah, so it was interesting. I will say, Scoot, I know you missed Charles Hayes doing some dancing in the stands.
Yeah, I bet he was dancing at home though. I'm surprised he didn't somehow like go Facebook Live or something with some of his dances.
What other other quick takeaways? Any guy, special teams?
Yeah, I mean, I had my same level of, oh boy, special teams.
Well, here, an area of concern. Evan Staley's got a 25-yard field goal, and he somehow pushes it right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which foot do you want me to kick with, Neil? I can do it. Come on. I've been calling you out, son. I can kick either foot 25 yards out.
Well, that did make me raise my eyebrows. So
I get it. It's a kind of a throwaway 3 points at this point in the game, but that could become very important 3 points in a game, So I mean,
sure, yeah. Sure.
I will say Tyler Sumter started off pretty well this season, even though he only had 2 punts, but they were both for about 55 yards. So that's a good way to start your average for the year.
And Sinkfield also, so on kick returns, I think early, to his credit, the rest of the day I think was clean, but Alex Sinkfield had almost lost one early. I think he dove back on it, but
yeah. So special teams again, it just always seems like every year we just can't get it together. It's always special teams as this concern.
I'm kind of with Scoot though. It makes me wonder if that's something that continues. Is that something that makes Gerard Parker? See, now I just call him Gerard because I just like it more.
Gerard.
But I wonder if Jared Parker gets later in the season and he's like, you know what, I'm going for it because I'm not sure. I like this length of a field goal. It makes me just wonder about that stuff. So I guess we'll see. I mean, hopefully that was just a one-off thing Saturday.
So in good news, guys, after the weekend of college football, 247 Sports came out with their super ridiculously, I doubt we're going to play any, but here's some early bowl predictions for you. West Virginia right now picked to go to the Cheez-It Bowl and play against Virginia Tech.
Yeah, I saw that.
Of course. Why wouldn't we go to a bowl after, the Cheez-It Bowl?
Scoot. We love Cheez-Its.
The Cheez-It Bowl.
What are your favorite Cheez-Its? I would submit Duo's Parmesan.
I do like a Parmesan. I also like a white cheddar.
Yeah.
I like a white cheddar grooves. White cheddar grooves.
Look, you're already behind this bowl, and it's not even remotely official.
It hurts me year in and year out to root to go to some ridiculous product and a bowl after the word bowl after it, like the Turtle Wax Bowl or something like can we not go to like one of the premier bowls? Can we not try to go to like a Cotton Bowl, a sugar? I know some of the
we're trying.
Conferences have
that's
affiliations.
the goal.
I get it. The conferences have affiliations with some of these things.
That's the goal. There's no bulletin board with a Cheez-It Bowl thing.
Pac-12 not playing. Can we please go to the Rose Bowl? packed. I mean, come on. Let us go to one of these big name bowls. Instead, we're going to go to the Flex Seal Billy Mays Bowl. Like, come on.
Here's the thing I don't get. We're picked to go to the Cheez-It Bowl with Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech hasn't even played a game yet. Their game against UVA was canceled because they've got an outbreak of COVID on the Virginia Tech staff.
Isn't that kind of par for the course with Tech, though? They're probably also ranked in the top 15.
I mean, and looking at so Johnson, just a real quick buzz through the Big 12 weekend that we had.
Let's talk about that wonderful Saturday.
We won. Nobody else seemed to want to win this
No
weekend.
one else wanted to do anything. So Iowa State lost to Louisiana 31-14. Which
no, I was going to say Iowa State, number 23 ranked Iowa State, lost to the Raging Cajuns.
Yeah, to the Raging Cajuns. And so 31-14. And at first I was like, well, I was trying to think back. Like Louisiana, I think was 11-3 last year. And then I was like, okay, but two of those losses were to App State. I think the other one was, I think they played an SEC team and they lost to. But then you just look at 31-14. They're not supposed to roll into Ames and go 31-14. And I thought Brock Purdy, who we've been hearing all these wonderful preseason things about, he didn't look very good. 16-35.
He didn't look very
Purdy, if you will. He threw an interception. This loss though changes my outlook on things, Guido. I have to say, because to support that, Kansas State follows that up with a loss to Arkansas State, 35-31. If that wasn't bad, if that sentence wasn't bad enough for you, then also know that Arkansas State was without 20 players for this game, including 8 of their starters.
I know, it's ridiculous. I mean, here's the thing, Johnson, that we all got to keep in the back of our minds, which is, things are a little different this year, and camp was a little different for all these teams, so maybe that's part of it. But I feel like, again, we put up a decent showing against EKU. Even Texas Tech had problems with Houston Baptist University, which I didn't even know existed.
Who I can only imagine is a vacation Bible school that decided to have football as one of their activities for the week. What is going on here?
And I read somewhere that Houston Baptist, University, they have bleachers on one side of their stadium and a CVS on the other side.
Well, so if you finish out with Kansas getting just drilled by the Chanticleers of Coastal Carolina, then you start to not feel so bad about a big 56-10 win over EKU. I'm actually very satisfied.
We look good. I mean, other than Oklahoma played Missouri State and beat the pants off of them 48-0. And I have to tell you, first of all, two things. One is maybe the best quarterback name in the Big 12 right now is
Spencer Rattler.
Spencer Rattler. That's a great name for a quarterback.
That is a great name.
I love that name. Redshirt freshman for Oklahoma. Two is he's the real deal. He looks good. Another great Oklahoma quarterback.
Makes me want to puke. Enough.
I know.
Enough with these people.
Well, I think Texas handled UTEP, if I'm remembering correctly, Guido. I don't think Baylor played. I think their game was canceled.
That game got canceled or postponed. So it was an interesting weekend, to say the least, for all of us Big 12 fans.
So I know we're going a little bit long here, Guido, but just really, really fast. So last week we all put in our thoughts about win-loss and all that kind of stuff. Does this Saturday, I don't know that you learn a whole lot from EKU, but EKU paired with this rundown of weird losses by teams, does that give you?
So I was 5-5 last week. I might be 6-4 now. I had us losing Iowa State. I thought Iowa State was going to be a better team.
Me too.
And they still might be.
Right.
So I'm going to hold.
Right, sure.
I'll stick with my 5-5.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean like any of these teams go on to have a season based on that first game, but I think it pushes me toward more of the 6-4 than maybe I was.
I was 4-6. I am maybe more 5-5, but I'm still like waiting to see how many guys get suspended or how many people are out each week and week in, week out.
Right.
WVU, I don't know, can sustain, if there's multiple guys out for some reason, I don't know that will bode well against some of those teams. I don't know. We'll just have to see, but
we'll have to see. I will say one thing and then we'll go to a break. There is one group that looked really bad this weekend.
Okay.
When you look at everything, and that was the Big Ten.
Oh,
the Big Ten looked horrible
Yeah,
this weekend.
it was a bad look for them.
Now they're talking about trying to play in October. They're all of a sudden the Big Ten's like, what? Oh, wait, everybody else playing football? We should do.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how they're supposed to be moving toward a vote.
It'll be interesting to see how long of a season they get, and do these other conferences band together and say, we're going to play, New Year's Eve. We're going to play, that second week of January, regardless of where you guys are at in your seasons.
We'll see what happens. It'll be interesting. Well, listen, let's take a break. We'll come back with everybody's favorite game show on a podcast about WVU sports. That's Bluff the Fluffs. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to Got Your Ears On. Vortec Knives is a West Virginia owned and operated company specializing in high quality steel, fast opening, everyday carrying knives. If you go to vortechknives.com today and use the code GYEO, you get a 25% discount on your entire order. That's Vortech, VORTEK knives.com, a West Virginia owned and operated company specializing in fast opening, high quality, everyday carry knives. Vortec Knives. I feel like, I'm just telling you right off the bat, I feel like there's a ton of negativity coming from Scoot, and you and I are going to have to bring him back down to earth.
Oh, you think so? So Scoot's usually the glass half full. I feel like lately you and I are the glass half full.
Oh yeah. Like, listen, I feel like this is like all of West Virginia fandom right now is nuts, like, about how negative they are about this team. And I just want to yell for the next hour about how everybody's wrong. That's what I want to do. So, but yeah, Scoot, I feel like there's negativity coming from you.
Well, that's because there is. That's why you feel that way.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm not sold.
How are you? Okay, so first of all, let's talk about it. West Virginia loses this weekend to Texas, 13-17. All right, 13-17. All right. West Virginia held the best offense in the Big 12.
This is true.
To 17 points.
Yes.
All right. They held their quarterback to 184 passing yards.
Right.
They held them to under 350 yards. And on top of that, the only reason West Virginia lost the game was because of horrible Big 12 officiating.
Yes, and some non-catching of balls, but we'll get to that.
We'll get to that.
So all of your positives center on one phase of the game.
No, I don't think so. I think, and we'll break this out a little bit. I think my positives are in all facets of the game. I think this team's coming along. I can't figure out, and where I'm having trouble right now is I can't figure out where the problem is. And I have
a submission.
I have one too, but like when you start to break it down and you look at just the Big 12, like let's take everything else out of it and let's talk about the Big 12 right now. West Virginia, number 2, ranked 2nd in total offense in Big 12 right now. West Virginia right now ranked 3rd in passing right now. No, I'm sorry, 2nd in passing right now in the Big 12. So we're going to talk about, the wide receivers can't, catch balls. Well, they're ranked 2nd in passing right now. We're second. We're the number 2 passing team in the Big 12. Like, where's the problem? What's the disconnect? Officiating. That's what
let's go. Well, let's go through the game, and then I think we'll shake that out.
Okay.
I have confidence in Scoot.
Well, I've got the answer.
So I guess, to start off, I mean, where do you want to start, Johnson? First quarter was we let them score the first series. We scored the next series. I thought, here we go. This is what I thought it was going to be.
I think so. Start out. I mean, first play of the game, they rip off a 54-yard run. Their running back Robinson goes galloping, just like gaping hole. He's off to the races. Almost scores.
Yeah.
Puts him in the red zone. And I think right off the bat, the West Virginia fan in me, the traditional West Virginia fan in me was like, we just lost. We're done. Here we go. This is terrible. This is a bad omen.
It's going to be a long day.
This is going to be a long day. Here we go. But, and they went on to score. But I think, like you said, we responded, and that was a great That was a great drive. That was actually what would become an anomaly in the first half. I think we amassed I don't know, one play alone, I think we went to right for like 39 yards, but we amassed like maybe a 50 to 60 yard drive. We ended the first half with not a whole lot more than that, really.
Right.
So, but the fact that we responded, I was like, okay, let's reset this. Let's get back in the game. And then the defense, like to what you were saying, the defense tightened up. I thought the defense played a great game. I thought they played a great first half, other than Texas was having a lot of success running the ball.
Well, and I think, for me, what kind of ccame out of it was something wasn't right with Letty Brown on Saturday. And I'm not, if it's health, if it's whatever it was, he only had 47 rushing yards. His longest rushing attempt was the 12-yard touchdown that he scored in that first series, the offensive series that we had. So something never clicked there. And we had yet another game similar to what we saw a few weeks back where Jared Dagey, has 50 passing attempts again. He's 31 for 50 for 317 yards. He's passing the ball a ton.
Yeah, well, I think that's so Letty apparently, and I didn't know that coming into the game. Maybe you guys did, but Holly Rowe, who don't you always like when Holly Rowe's, and I feel like she is a friend to the university. Like whenever it's usually basketball, but I like it when Holly's involved. It's like she's always a good ambassador for us on TV. I always like that. But she pointed out, I guess he had upper thigh heavily taped. You could kind of see it through his uniform, so he was obviously battling some kind of hip groin injury. And I guess that's why we saw a lot of Alex Sinkfield, who, I would submit is, they kind of, on the broadcast, they act like he's the B to Letty's A, but I never really feel like that. I never get that impression. I like Sinkfield's speed, but he can't make his own holes. He can't really do the type of like bull rush things that Letty does. So definitely had an effect. I think we ended the first half with not so many rushing yards. And to your point about 50 passing attempts, what I think that pushes you into, we became masters the rest of the game of the like 3 to 5 yard quick pass to move ourselves down the field.
Yeah, and Scoot, like we ended up having time of possession. We had the ball 10 minutes longer than Texas did, 35 minutes to 25 minutes.
Which is crazy.
It's crazy. And yet, we look at, we're the only team right now in the Big 12 that is not having these big shootout, crazy high-scoring games that all the other teams seem to be having. So where's the problem, Scoot? Like how do you correct it? What's the issue?
Lack of the big play. Like, so our defenses don't really have to worry about a deep threat because if they sag off our receivers, they know for the most part, unless the receiver breaks 5 or 10 tackles, they're going to keep them from scoring the big play. And to me, that opens up, you have a big play threat, that opens up the running game so that Letty and Alex Sinkfield, who I would say that he is not 1A or 1B, I would throw him probably more like 1L would be where he fits in on the offensive scheme of things. Because I'm not high on Alex Sinkfield. He might be a great kid. I really don't know. But he certainly likes to see what the ball can do off of the front of his uniform on a punt. And he also likes to gain roughly, he tries to gain, I think, how much or how few inches can I gain from the line of scrimmage yet still have a positive gain. So he does that well.
Well, I think that gets into what I was going to submit as the issue, Guido. So maybe we just jump into that.
Go for it, yeah.
So pregame, so my man JM Kreitz on Twitter, it was like we're here, we're eye to eye on things, I think, because he tweets out, "Now I'm worried." He was John Antonick. When John Antonick, I feel like he's E.F. Hutton of WVU Twitter. Like when John Antonick tweets something, I listen. Okay. Yeah, and my man Kreitz subtweeted him and said, so Antonick was saying Tom Herman thinks his D line is one of the deepest. And so my man Kreitz is like, now I'm worried because I think our O line tends to struggle at times. And so I felt like I spent going into the game and then during the game, and then certainly compounded when Letty couldn't get going. I kept watching, what's our O-line doing? How's our O-line faring? How is, in these 50 pass attempts, Guido, I think Deggy's getting hurried a lot. He's getting the ball out just in time. He doesn't have a whole lot of time. So I think Parker and Coach Brown, you suddenly have to morph everything into quick pass, quick slant, 3-yard pass, 5-yard screen, bubble screen, and I know Scoot gets frustrated with that, but it's sort of like that becomes your run game. That becomes your defense to Deggy not getting his head taken off the whole time. So I guess long story short, I think, because you even pointed out in our notes some key plays where Deggy got blown up because people miss blocks. So I think when your O-line tends to be on skates against a team like that, especially then when you get inside the red zone, it's that much harder to cash in, because now everything's condensed and you can't protect.
Yeah, and I see what you're saying. I mean, there have been plenty of teams that have been super successful running those, short out routes and crossing patterns for 5 yards and making, Super Bowl championships out of it.
But you can't argue that we went up and down the field. We just didn't cash it in.
No, we did. We just couldn't convert.
Yeah,
that was the problem.
right.
And that's where, we failed this week, where we've been really good. We were 3 for 5 in the red zone this week. Usually that's a 5 for 5, 4 for 5.
Right.
And of those 3 for 5, only one of them was a touchdown. So I think that was a problem. I mean, and I don't want to be that guy who hangs the blame on something that's outside of the program's control, but officiating, Johnson, was horrendous.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think I try not to complain too hard about Big 12 refs, but their general level of badness. But I thought this was a really, really bad showing. 2 in particular that you're probably going to hit on. The backward pass that I thought, come on, what are we, like CSI? This went under review for a while. People were drawing lines on the screen to try and see where the ball. To me, that's a backward pass all day. You're just in Austin and you're just going to have to deal with not getting the benefit of that. And then I think at the end of the game, is it Winston Wright who's in the end zone getting a piggyback ride from a Texas D-back?
I mean, that's 100% a pass interference
I think
call.
That's 100% PI.
I also have a problem with the touchdown reversal call. That was, You look at that a million times, and I don't see how that was concrete evidence that the ball touched the ground on that. To me, that it looked like he had control, looked like his hand was under it. I think in the NFL, that's a U.S. Gene Steratore. That's a touchdown. You know what I mean?
Well, I think that one, I was already so mad that he just didn't catch it cleanly because I thought Deggy gave him a good. Yeah, I mean, he just put it right there for him. I was already angry that he didn't catch it cleanly. To me, that's one that just got away. And how big did that loom then over the rest of the game?
And then you had that next play, and I praise Zach Frazier up and down. And seriously, as a true freshman, he's been amazing this season. But he just totally missed that blitz.
Yeah, and Deggy got blasted.
Blasted,
right.
So, I mean, it's one of those things where I think there were definitely those 3 calls that really turned West Virginia on their back.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
Put them in a position where they didn't have any chance in that game. And that pass interference call at the end of the game was just so atrocious that wasn't called.
Yeah, it was a bad non-call.
Yeah.
What I learned from the game is I learned where Jarrett Deggy was from.
Hey, did you know he's from Lubbock?
Well, and
here we go again.
because we didn't know that, right? We didn't know that from.
Listen, I don't want to get on it because I really like Joe Tessitore. Like, I think Joe Tessitore calls a great game. He's fun to listen to. He's funny. Like the whole thing with the guy, the West Virginia fan in the croc in the cowboy boot.
Yes,
Come on, man, that was hilarious.
And the Tavon Austin jersey.
What team doesn't he like? He doesn't like Texas. Who didn't recruit him? I did learn.
I think I heard it was
about
Texas Tech. Yeah.
I hate to tell you, Scoot. I hate to tell you this, but you got a whole nother season, I think, of having to listen to this stuff because I think Daggy's back next year.
Yeah.
Daggy's the starting quarterback for the team next year, and ESPN only has one thing to talk about when it comes to Jared Daggy.
They're going to bring up
the
their
fact
notes,
that he's from,
and they're going to go,
he's from Lubbock,
Does he
Texas.
have a brother?
Yeah, he had a brother. He went to Texas Tech. I mean, So I hear you on it. Let's switch sides of the ball.
Well, before we leave, though, can we do one thing before we leave? I thought two things in particular. I thought Winston Wright, once again, we're banging on him a little bit for this drop, but overall, I thought he continues to be solid in the receiver corps, and I think Esdale had a wonderful game.
Yeah, and we haven't really talked about him at all.
No, we haven't. He had a couple catches that were just strong, just big boy wide receiver catches. So I thought that was great.
It always seemed like he was in the right place at the right time. Coverage was minimal on him.
Yeah.
It was really good.
I'll say this, TJ Simmons is good for one 45 to 50-yard reception a game, and he did that as well.
And don't you, when he does that and makes it look easy, don't you go, man, can we get more of that? That would be great.
That's why he was recruited by Alabama. And then there's got to be some other factors as to why we don't see that on a regular basis.
Well, because he makes it look easy, and you're right. It's once or twice a game, and you're like, okay, let's do that. Let's work that in every series.
I feel like he is if the receiving corps, if a position were to have its own captain, I feel like he is the captain of the receiving corps.
Yeah, I could see that.
He may not lead the team in catches, but I feel like he's like the grandfather. Like he's the guy that kind of
right.
Either calms them down or gets them focused, and I think he leads in those ways. And I know a lot of times he's carried the flag out, the state flag.
Right.
So he's kind of bought into the whole idea that, this is the state's team. It's not just the college's team. So, I mean, he seems like a good guy.
Yeah, I totally agree.
He just doesn't produce like you would want to see him produce.
Well, and I think this is, again, another week of the same thing that we've been saying all season, which is there's no standout receiver on this team. There's nobody that's taken the reins. There's no number one guy. And you saw it again with the fact that there were 10 different people that fell on the box score with receptions, including Jarrett Dagey throwing the ball to himself for -9 yards.
Yeah.
That happened.
Which I feel like that should count.
I thought it was an awesome play that he got it and threw it back, but unfortunately, but it does count as a reception for himself. But again, it's one of those things where there's 9 different guys, all of those 9 guys caught multiple or had multiple targets. So it's still one of those things where there isn't a receiver that is the number one receiver that it would allow any of the other guys to break out.
Well, or the guy, what I hear you saying is there's no all right, the ball has to go to X. There's no
David
guy
Sills.
when you need you need a play. Oh, okay, the ball has to go here. We don't really know who that is right now. So.
In one week we see TJ Simmons as the leading receiver. Next week it's BFW. The next week it's Winston Wright. So it's not like every week we're seeing the same guy at the top of the stat sheet too.
Well,
we're seeing different guys.
And early on I tended to think that was Bryce Ford Wheaton, but then sometimes he doesn't really,
Well, do you know who it's not? And I thought it would be. It's not Sam James.
Yeah.
No.
It hasn't been Sam James.
Yeah.
All year long.
But I do think he's playing better. But I agree with you. Yeah, I agree.
I felt like he was poised to break out, and this would become his team, and that has not happened at all.
Well, I mean, maybe it still can, but I think after watching that, I came away thinking I think you got to get Esdale more targets. He looks great. So anyway, okay, we can hit the defense.
Looking on the other side of the ball, it's the same story that it's been every week that we've been talking about, which is defense is strong. Tony Fields is definitely the leader of this team. Another game where he had double-digit tackles. Dylan Tonkery starting to kind of pull himself out of the fold.
Yeah, Scoot, big motor.
Yeah, he's a West Virginia guy. Kind of reminds me. I know was he from Bridgeport?
Harrison County.
I think so.
Yeah. So Bonamico is a popular name there, but Tonkery also played with the Bonamicos at Bridgeport High, and they were perennial high school powers. Bridgeport is, so not too surprising.
1 sack, 2 tackles for a loss. So he just looked great.
Well, do you think that's because he's looking great because there are some headline names that other teams are keying in on? So, we know the Stills brothers, of course. We've seen what Prince Akeem is doing. Tony Fields I mean, I didn't know Tony Fields existed until this year, until he transferred to WVU. So that proves to me that the Pac-12 is useless. And it's West Coast, and nobody cares about the West Coast. Also, Jared Bartlett, which I'll be honest, I didn't think much of Jared Bartlett in the sense that, like, what was it, 2 games ago where the announcers, that's all they talked about? And I was like, hey, what games are you guys watching? So I think we've got some names that are floating around that aren't named Dylan Tonkery. And guess what? When that happens, guess who's free? Dylan Tonkery.
Yeah, I would agree with a lot of that, and I think to me there's just you could add even more names on there.
Chandler
Semedo. I think Pooler. I think there's so many guys you got to try.
Low.
Yeah, they all played great, and I think when you move into I think Mahone, thank goodness he didn't get tossed for that target.
I'll be honest, thought it was. Should have been, probably.
I kind of did too. I'm not gonna lie, I thought it was too, but I thought he came back and played another terrific game after last week. I thought I love our defensive secondary, Adai, Mahone, Tyke Smith. Someone
he's
tweeted,
the real deal.
Someone tweeted during the game, Tyke Smith is going to be a Sunday player. I totally agree with that. He's been playing so big lately. So yeah, that's the frustration, Guido, because once again you find yourself this week saying, we don't need a lot of points. We just need enough. We need that touchdown pass not to be dropped. We just need one more score really in this game, and the defense is going to take care of you. So that, to me, that's once again this week, that's the frustration.
And that's the thing that I'm not sure is going to change for the rest of the season, which is I'm not sure that I think we're going to continue to see West Virginia University defense stop these teams, these juggernauts of the Big 12, if you will. TCU's whatever it is this week, and we'll talk about them. But we got Oklahoma, we got Iowa State that's playing great coming up. I think we can stop them. I think we can keep the points low. It's we can't. We're baseball guys. It's one of those things we got to talk about baseball. You can have a guy pitch a no hitter, but if you can't put a run up, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, sure.
And it's the same thing. It's the same problem. Like, this team just can't convert. And I think what a lot of people are saying this week, and a lot of the blame is being put on play calls and going for it on those fourth downs and not taking the points. I don't know if that is an indictment on the special teams and on the kicking game and the fact that Evan Staley isn't there and Casey Legg is not a trusted leg to kick it. Or if it's something else, if it's them trying to just create more momentum and mojo. I have a feeling it's probably the first thing.
Yeah, it probably is. I think it's definitely weighing in, but at the same time, I found myself as we edged toward the end of the game, like, man, I would have loved to have had points in those situations, but it's easy to second guess that. It's easy.
And it's one of those things, and I even tweeted it out this week. Like, I thought the play calling this week was way more aggressive than it had been in weeks past, and I thought that we saw some different stuff out there. I think that the offense was trying and making some different and newer things work. It's just they for some reason they can't get it down the field and into the end zone. It's like all the parts are there, they just can't put it all together.
Well, I continue to submit that the O-line is improving, and I like our O-line. I mean, I didn't like our O-line last year. I think you can see a market improvement, but I don't think it's to the point where when you get down there in a crunch situation, the field is short. You can't spread the field and then pick apart with quick slants and stuff. You need a push. I think that's where I feel like that's where we got caught this week.
So West Virginia drops one. That's a tough loss to Texas this weekend, especially only holding Texas to 17 points, 17 to 13.
Right. Yep.
We covered the spread, so the gamblers were probably happy. We travel now, or actually we come back home, or we're already back home more than likely. We bring TCU. We host TCU on Saturday at noon at Milan Puskar Stadium on Fox, another nationally televised game. Sounds like we're going to get Gus Johnson screaming the play-by-play, so that's always fun. Texas Christian University walloped, just spanked Texas Tech this weekend, 34-18, and that score sounds a lot closer than that game was. And I think the interesting thing that's coming out of this, looking at TCU and looking at the team that we're going to be facing this week, is the fact that TCU is a running offense. They run the ball a lot. Their number one rusher is their quarterback, Max Duggan, but set that aside. They're averaging second most in the Big 12 right now with almost 200 yards a game. And they're averaging 6 to 8 people rushing the ball during the game.
Oh, wow.
So it's not
I
like
didn't know that. That's a little bit crazy.
You're seeing this past weekend, there were 8 different players who had rushing attempts. And so it'll be interesting because I feel like on the other end of that, that's sort of our strong suit defensively is stopping the rush. So it could play to our the positives for us this week. But again, it's the same conversation we've been having, guys, which is we can keep them from scoring, but can we score?
Well, I just hope they don't bring those god-awful uniforms. These black, orange, blue, purple, silver.
They were like frogs of war.
They
outfits.
are hideous.
Remember that's when I explained to you the red tip stuff was because the horned frog, his defense mechanism is to shoot blood from his eyes. And you thought I was crazy.
Disgusting.
Then we looked it up. Yeah, that's a bit crazy town.
It's gross.
It's a bad thing.
It's gross.
It's a bad thing.
Are they the only college team, Division I college team, with an amphibian as its mascot?
Oh, they can't be, right? There's got to be.
I mean, typically, are you afraid of amphibians?
Negative.
I mean, horned frog that shoots blood out of its eyes, that sounds pretty intimidating. That's a little scary.
That's going to freak me out. Yeah, it's going to freak me out.
I'm not really...
Generally speaking, no. Like, if your team was named the Gila Monsters, I don't really care.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like, oh, look, watch out for the iguanas this week. We got the iguanas.
Guido, I feel like TCU is very close to us. It's almost like looking in a mirror a little bit when you look at what they've accomplished this season. So they lose to Texas they beat Texas by 2. They lose to Kansas State really close. They beat Baylor. They beat the trash can in Lubbock that we should have.
Yep.
So I think they come in pretty strong. I think they look a lot. They probably, feel like a solid team, like I think of us. So I almost feel like when I felt the upcoming game against Kansas State, I thought that was going to be a blow for blow game. And then we put the smackdown on Kansas State. So for some reason, I feel like we come out angry. We come out mad from this Texas game. And I feel like we take care of business in this game.
I will reserve judgment on that. I don't know. I'm a little leery. I think I had this originally pegged as a loss, so I'm still I've got my doubts.
So West Virginia right now is a 3-point favorite over TCU going into this weekend. The over-under on the game is 47, so a very low over-under for your average Big 12 matchup. Usually you see the Big 12 games 52, 55, 60 points on the over-under. So this week you've got West Virginia picked by 3 points. I hope I'm with you, Johnson. Like, I feel like I'm with you. I think we can keep TCU from scoring. I don't see TCU getting more than mid-teens again in points, like we did with if we can hold Texas, the number 1 offense in the Big 12, to 17 points, we can hold TCU to 17 points.
That's where I'm at.
The question is can we score 21?
Can we score more than that? Yeah.
So I'm gonna be positive. I'm gonna say West Virginia 21, Texas Christian University 17. West Virginia covers and wins this weekend.
I love that score. Yeah. In fact, I'm gonna double down on that, Scoot.
Nice.
21-17.
21-17, Scoot. You want in on it?
No, I don't. I am going to say that TCU scores 24 points and WVU scores 13 points.
Ew. That's upsetting.
I don't like 13 at all. That'd be 13. That would be unlucky 13 2 weeks in a row. That's what you're telling me.
24-13.
All right.
We get blood spit in our eyes.
That's right.
We get blood squirted on us.
Sticky hands.
That's gross.
I think that's what they got. I think the frogs got sticky hands. Are they hands on a frog?
No, frogs don't have hands.
What are those?
What frog have you ever said that frog's got hands?
Legs? I know they got legs, but what do they got? They got hands.
No. Right?
I think a frog's got hands.
I've eaten frog legs before. I've never eaten frog hands.
Why do you ask me these questions that kind of break my brain?
I think a frog has got a hand.
Why do you do that? I don't know what to do with that. I think
it's not a frog paw.
Well, yeah, isn't it though? It's like
it's not a frog paw.
It's not a hand.
I think it's a hand.
Look at Look at the hands on that frog.
Look at the hands on that frog.
I'm just saying.
That frog's got himself a set
I'm
of
just saying that
mitts.
frog's
I'm
got
just saying
some
that's a
big
set of
hands.
mitts. I think they got
All right.
hands.
And good news for us this weekend, the trapezoid of evil
Oh, yes.
kind of fell apart a little bit.
So this is interesting, Guido. So just for a quick hashtag trapezoid of evil update, I thought it was interesting that the Maryland Twerps went into Happy Valley. They beat Penn State. So first of all, you need to know that I believe Penn State now goes to 0-3 for the first time in a long time.
Which is crazy because Penn State was picked to be a good team coming out of the Big Ten.
So hate that for them.
Yeah.
And in the mix of this win, I retweeted it because it just caught my attention. I thought it was so funny because you got to keep in mind that I think the week prior we talked about Maryland because they lost 43-3 to Northwestern, right?
Right.
Northwestern, Scoot, a notably purple wearing team.
Yeah, again, horrible. Purple Wildcats, come on.
So they go into Happy Valley, the Twerps beat Penn State, then they send this tweet out, and at the caption says, Guido, Sad Valley. And it has a Maryland player in front of a whiteout stadium at Penn State. It says, you know how they say we are, and then the other side of the stadium says Penn State.
Right.
This tweet says you were. Like, how much shade, Scoot, can the Twerps throw?
I mean,
and they're in these roller derby uniforms that they wear. Like, the whole thing just made me laugh. Like,
they really probably shouldn't be running their yapper since Northwestern is like notoriously horrific in most sports. Smart people, not athletic.
smart
people.
Yes,
Smart people, not very good at the sports.
So Maryland gets the win over Penn State. That was kind of a trapezoidal battle. And then if you needed something to feel better about after, like, pretty much as we were in the process of getting a terrible non-pass interference call to end our game, Virginia Tech had been trailing Liberty. I think they're the Flames, Scoot.
They are the Flames. They have Hugh Freeze from his hospital bed calling plays. He's up in the I think he just does that now for fun.
I think just as for old time's sake.
He just hangs out in his hospital bed.
So tied 35-35, Liberty lines up to kick the winning field goal. They kick it. Virginia Tech blocks it. They return it for a touchdown. Pandemonium ensues. They win the game, only they don't because is it Fuente? Justin Fuente, the head coach, called a timeout, so it didn't count. They have to let Liberty realign, kick the field goal. Liberty makes it. They beat the Hokies in Blacksburg, 38-35.
And
so I thought,
I'm pretty sure if the three of us, were to walk onto the sideline in Liberty football uniforms, they would play us because they wouldn't know the difference between the guys they've got and us. I can't. I mean, no disrespect to the Liberty college athlete.
It's like it's Liberty, very much like University of Phoenix, right? It's nobody knows who really goes there. Is that what
I think we could be starters for Liberty.
Yeah, so Johnson on top of that, just to keep going with Trapezoid of Evil, Pitt beat somebody, but nobody really cares.
Yeah, I think they won. Nobody cares. That's the end of the update.
So I have to say the trajectory, albeit not that bad, of the football team. I'm hashtag trust the climb. I'm still there, boys. I'm still a Neil Brown guy. This team's going to be national champions in the next 5 years. I'm still there, but I'm super excited, and I'm ready to do a basketball show. I'm ready to, I want to do a whole episode just about basketball, which I know is coming up, but I'm starting to get excited about basketball with one exception. Teams keep dropping out of the Bad Boys Big Bad Mower, Bad Boys Crossover, Bad Classic.
Bad Boys.
I don't understand what's happening. All these teams are leaving. And so Scoot last week is like, oh, all these teams are so good and we're going to come out of there ranked third in the nation. And then all of a sudden, every team is leaving this basketball tournament.
Well, and I was excited for Dayton to be in it. They're always a good team. So, yeah, it's one more. That sucks because now do they get replaced, or are we just down a team? How do you think this works?
Well, so we already lost Ohio State, and they got replaced. Now we've Dayton, who was replacing Duke in the first place,
Right. That's actually, I forgot that. Yes,
is now out. So yeah.
So what's the reason for them leaving? What is
I think it's COVID. They're all saying COVID, which I don't understand because it's still 2 weeks until this tournament
it just says
tips
due,
off anyway.
due to COVID.
Yeah, due to COVID.
like
So,
they're
I don't
scared
know.
of COVID in South Carolina or South Dakota?
Well, I wonder actually. So not to get into the whole COVID thing and get people all riled up, but North and South Dakota are the two worst states in the United States right now with how many positives they have per million people.
Okay, so I didn't know that, Scoot. So that means you were going to the Bahamas, and instead, not only are you getting sent to not the Bahamas, but you're getting sent to one of the worst places for COVID. Is that what I'm supposed to understand?
It's like a biker rally gone bad.
Yeah. So I think that is what is precipitating all of these issues, is that the Dakotas, both North and South Dakota, are doing very poorly with controlling their COVID. And I think that's what's making these teams back out. Right now, South Dakota is averaging 1,300 positive tests for every 1 million people. To put that into some perspective, right now, West Virginia is averaging 260 per 1 million people. So you're talking about a big spread right there.
Send Big Jim to the Dakotas. Scoot.
Dakotas need Big Jim's map. That's what it is.
If I were the bad boy, big boy mower classic people, why don't I just say, hey, listen, we're going to have to pull our sponsorship and we want this tournament played in Memphis, Tennessee, or
I like
some
it.
other
pick a city that doesn't or pick a state that doesn't have
New Orleans even, or some
crazy
other
COVID
place that's
Charleston, West Virginia.
right. Exactly.
Maybe.
But here's the thing: they're not. It's not about. I don't think the problem is, Scoot, and it's not about who's in the arena. They could play it anywhere. They could play it at Fairmont State.
I guess that's true.
It's about being able to get TV cameras there and put it on ESPN. And so
put them in the bubble. Put them in
the
Disney.
bubble. Let's go down to Wide World of
Would
Sports.
you like them in the Armory? Some sort of armory?
The Fairmont Armory, right there. The Woody Williams Armory.
The Feaster Center at FSU?
Feaster Center. Yeah, right. Let's do it. So, I'm starting to get nervous,
as I think you should,
that in the next 2 weeks that this whole bad boys, big boy, bad
crossover
boys mower
crossover
classic is not going to happen.
What do you always want to call tournaments? You always want to call tournaments classics.
Classics.
Yes.
This is a classic.
Remember, what was the
Is this a classic?
I think it is a classic.
This is a classic, but I think
classic.
Previously you've called non-classics classics.
Like,
right.
Don't you have to have some time in to become a classic?
That's my understanding of classic.
You can't just be a classic off the bat.
Right.
This is the first time we've gone to Sioux City. How's it a classic?
All right. Like, this should just be the annual.
Yeah.
It's an annual until it's a classic.
Right.
That's exactly.
I
It
agree.
shouldn't even be an annual. It's the first one. It should just be the first
The inaugural.
tournament.
Right.
So West Virginia University also this week announces that fans will be allowed at home games for basketball, but it's limited to 3,000 fans, and that's all season. They're not going to talk about, are we going to add more later or not? All season, 3,000 fans. Flat. Done.
Do you think
So-
Huggins will still complain about filling the stadium?
Yes.
Will he still complain about how we can't get 3,000 people here?
You're definitely going to have Huggins in the post-game press conferences going, if there were more than 2,873 people here, it wouldn't be a problem. But
We're working hard for you.
we're working hard for the.
That's about 20%, right?
Yeah,
Am I
think
doing
it's
that right?
Somewhere
So
around
I
there is
guess
what they said.
that's where that number came from.
So
I guess that makes sense.
So tickets are getting ready to go on sale, but you've got that all going down. And then the good news is we're still loved, even with the bad boy mower classic losing all of these teams. We're still loved by the names out there. Ken Pomeroy has us in his top 10. Andy Katz has us ranked pretty high. I will say Andy Katz has us as the third ranked team in the Big 12 right now. He has us behind Baylor and Kansas.
Yep.
If you look at Ken Palm, who we love to talk about. Ken Palm has us fourth in the Big 12 behind Baylor, Kansas, Texas Tech, then us. And what's kind of interesting this year, when you look at the Ken Palm rankings, which is what most people go by, right now Big 12 owns the top 10.
Yeah, it's kind of insane. 5 of the top 9.
Yes.
Crazy.
5 of the top 9. So he's got Baylor, he's got Kansas, Texas Tech, West Virginia, and Texas all in the top 10 this year.
Do you know what I'm excited about?
What are you excited about, Scoot?
I'm excited about our basketball analyst / correspondent
I am too.
helping us break down the Big 12
Yes.
and some of what he has seen and experienced. Because
And experienced, yes.
I think he's going to be able to give us some really good insight. He is kind of like maybe a taller version of Fran Fraschilla.
Okay.
Okay, that's interesting.
All right.
I might go with that.
I'd give him more than that, accolade wise, but okay.
So you're basically saying he's a tall Fran Fraschilla. Is what you're saying? That's all you're giving. 2 weeks from this week, we're gonna have our basketball analyst on. Next week we'll announce who it is. If you haven't figured out yet, folks, you're pretty dense because it's kind of obvious. But
We are excited.
we are super excited.
I am pumped. I cannot wait.
Friend of the podcast,
Friend of the pod.
He's going to be a good time to have on, and some great stories will be shared. Don't forget, look for us online. You can find us on social media at Got Your Eers On Twitter and Instagram. You can also look for us on Facebook and check out our website, gotyourearson.com. Thanks for everybody for listening. We'll be back next week. Have a good week. You've been listening to Got Your Eers On.